1. Q. Where is biodiversity most abundantly available? A. At the confluence. 2. Q. What is the major component of biodiversity? A. Invertebrates, about 48%. 3. Q. What is a biodiversity hotspot? A. An area with high biodiversity, high endemism, and high threat. 4. Q. What are the features of a biodiversity hotspot? A. Diverse, endemic, and threatened species. 5. Q. What are the levels of biodiversity? A. Genetic, species, and ecosystem diversity. 6. Q. How is genetic biodiversity measured? A. By species richness and species evenness. 7. Q. What is species evenness? A. The relative abundance of species in a community. 8. Q. What does low evenness mean? A. Only a few species dominate the site. 9. Q. What is species richness? A. The number of species found in a community. 10. Q. How is species richness measured? A. By counting the number of species in a community. 11. Q. What are the divisions of species richness? A. Alpha, beta, and gamma diversity. 12. Q. How many biogeographic realms are there in the world? A. 8 realms. 13. Q. How many biogeographic realms does India have? A. 2 realms. 14. Q. Which 2 biogeographic realms are found in India? A. Palearctic and Indo-Malayan. 15. Q. What is another term for biodiversity hotspot? A. Anthropogenic biodiversity hotspot. 16. Q. Who first identified biodiversity hotspots? A. Norman Myers. 17. Q. How many biodiversity hotspots were originally identified by Norman Myers? A. 25 hotspots. 18. Q. How many biodiversity hotspots are currently recognized by Conservation International? A. 34 hotspots. 19. Q. What is a hope spot? A. A special area of the ocean identified for conservation. 20. Q. What does the red list represent? A. Threatened species. 21. Q. What does Schedule 1 represent under the Wildlife Protection Act? A. Highest protection, such as for the tiger. 22. Q. What is Juliflora? A. An invasive species introduced from Mexico. 23. Q. What is mass extinction? A. A period when many species become extinct in a relatively short geological time. 24. Q. How is mass extinction measured? A. Using a system of chronological dating. 25. Q. What is the geologic time scale? A. A system of chronological dating used to describe Earth's history. 26. Q. How many major extinctions have occurred in Earth's history? A. 5 major extinctions. 27. Q. What are eons? A. The primary divisions of geological time. 28. Q. Who assesses the Red List? A. International Union for Conservation of Nature and the World Conservation Monitoring Center. 29. Q. What does the pink list represent? A. Critically endangered species. 30. Q. What does the green list represent? A. Species that are no longer endangered. 31. Q. How many major categories are there in the IUCN Red List? A. 7 categories. 32. Q. What are the 7 IUCN categories? A. Extinct, extinct in the wild, critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable, near threatened, and least concern. 33. Q. What is the aim of Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora? A. To regulate international commercial trade in endangered species. 34. Q. Where is the Secretariat of Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora located? A. In Geneva under United Nations Environment Programme, Switzerland. 35. Q. What is the legal status of Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora? A. It is a legally binding international convention. 36. Q. What are the classifications of Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora? A. Appendix I, Appendix 2, and Appendix 3. 37. Q. How many schedules are there under the Wildlife Protection Act, 1972? A. 6 schedules. 38. Q. How many protected areas are recognized under the Wildlife Protection Act, 1972? A. 5 protected areas. 39. Q. What are the major institutional components of the Wildlife Protection Act, 1972? A. National Board for Wildlife and National Tiger Conservation Authority. 40. Q. Where are coral reefs generally located? A. In tropical waters. 41. Q. What are coral reefs? A. Tough structures formed by the skeletons of dead corals. 42. Q. Where are coral reefs found in India? A. Near the Gulf of Kutch, but not near the Sundarbans. 43. Q. What temperature is suitable for coral reefs? A. More than 20 degrees Celsius. 44. Q. What depth is suitable for coral reefs? A. Less than 180 feet. 45. Q. What type of water is suitable for coral reefs? A. Salty and free from sediment. 46. Q. What is coral bleaching? A. Fading of coral color. 47. Q. What causes coral bleaching? A. Loss of photosynthetic zooxanthellae or their pigments. 48. Q. What is the conservation status of the dugong sea cow? A. Vulnerable. 49. Q. What is a sea cow? A. A herbivorous marine mammal. 50. Q. Where is the dugong found in India? A. In the Gulf of Kutch, Gulf of Mannar, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. 51. Q. Where is the lion-tailed macaque found in India? A. In the Western Ghats. 52. Q. Where is the flying squirrel found in India? A. In Namdapha Tiger Reserve, Arunachal Pradesh. 53. Q. What is the conservation status of the olive ridley sea turtle? A. Vulnerable. 54. Q. Why is the olive ridley sea turtle famous? A. For mass nesting and hatching along the Orissa coast. 55. Q. What is the status of the cheetah in India? A. Extinct in the wild in India historically. 56. Q. What are examples of endangered species? A. Musk deer and Asiatic wild ass. 57. Q. What is the conservation status of the Ganges River dolphin? A. Endangered. 58. Q. In which schedule of the Wildlife Protection Act is the Ganges River dolphin listed? A. Schedule 1. 59. Q. In which appendix of Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora is the Ganges River dolphin listed? A. Appendix I. 60. Q. What is the national aquatic animal of India? A. Ganges River dolphin. 61. Q. How does the Ganges River dolphin navigate? A. By using ultrasonic sounds echolocation. 62. Q. Where is the great hornbill found in India? A. In the Western Ghats and the lower Himalayas. 63. Q. What is the conservation status of the great hornbill? A. Vulnerable. 64. Q. In which appendix of Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora is the great hornbill listed? A. Appendix I. 65. Q. What is the significance of the Wildlife Protection Act? A. It classifies species under schedules. 66. Q. What is the significance of Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora? A. It classifies species under appendices. 67. Q. What is the leatherback sea turtle? A. The largest living turtle and the fourth heaviest reptile. 68. Q. Which is the fourth heaviest reptile? A. Leatherback sea turtle. 69. Q. What is the conservation status of the leatherback sea turtle? A. Vulnerable. 70. Q. What is in situ conservation? A. Conservation in the natural habitat. 71. Q. What are the methods of in situ conservation? A. Biosphere reserves, wildlife sanctuaries, and national parks. 72. Q. What are examples of ex situ conservation? A. Gene banks, zoos, and botanical gardens. 73. Q. What is Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserve? A. Biosphere Reserve. 74. Q. What is a biosphere reserve? A. Protected area where traditional human life and conservation coexist. 75. Q. What is the main structure of a biosphere reserve? A. Core, buffer, and transition zones. 76. Q. In which protected area is human activity completely prohibited? A. National Park. 77. Q. Which national park is known as the floating national park? A. Cable Lamjau National Park. 78. Q. What is the purpose of the Ramsar Convention? A. Conservation and wise use of wetlands. 79. Q. When was the Ramsar Convention signed? A. 1971. 80. Q. What is the Montreux Record? A. Register of threatened wetland sites under conservation concern. 81. Q. What is the status of Chilika Lake in the Montreux Record? A. Removed from the Montreux Record. 82. Q. What is MIKE? A. Monitoring of illegal killing of elephants. 83. Q. When was MIKE introduced? A. In 2003. 84. Q. When was MIKE introduced? A. Under Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora in South Africa. 85. Q. What is the purpose of the E8 countries group? A. Elephant conservation and awareness. 86. Q. Why is the Ramsar Convention important? A. For sustainable development and wetland conservation. 87. Q. Why was the Montreal Protocol introduced? A. To protect the ozone layer from depletion. 88. Q. What is the Alai Darwaza line? A. Peak line. 89. Q. Under which IUCN category does a national park fall? A. IUCN category 2. 90. Q. Which was the first national park in India? A. Jim Corbett National Park. 91. Q. Which state has the highest number of national parks in India? A. Madhya Pradesh. 92. Q. Where is Bitakanika National Park located? A. At the confluence of the Brahmani, Batarani, and Dhamra river system in Orissa. 93. Q. Why is Bitakanika National Park famous? A. For saltwater crocodiles. 94. Q. Name famous tiger reserves in India. A. Bandipur Tiger Reserve and Bitakanika National Park. 95. Q. What is a community reserve? A. Protected area owned by the community or public. 96. Q. What is a conservation reserve? A. Protected area owned by the government. 97. Q. What is a wildlife sanctuary? A. Protected area notified and controlled by the state government. 98. Q. Who determines the boundaries of a wildlife sanctuary? A. National Board for Wildlife. 99. Q. Where is Pambong LHO Wildlife Sanctuary located? A. Sikkim. 100. Q. Where is Saramati Wildlife Sanctuary located? A. Nagaland. 101. Q. What are the components of a tiger reserve? A. Core and buffer zones. 102. Q. Where is Silana Khama Sanctuary located? A. Ratlam. 103. Q. Where is Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve located? A. At the confluence of the Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats. 104. Q. What is pollution? A. Introduction of harmful contaminants into the environment. 105. Q. What are the types of pollution? A. Air, water, land, and noise pollution. 106. Q. Which gases are not included in the Air Quality Index AQI? A. Carbon dioxide and methane. 107. Q. What is the significance of carbon monoxide? A. It is produced by incomplete combustion and affects hemoglobin. 108. Q. What is the significance of carbon dioxide? A. It is a greenhouse gas released from fossil fuels and volcanoes. 109. Q. What are chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs? A. Compounds used in axe and aerosol sprays. 110. Q. What causes water pollution? A. Contaminants like arsenic, chloride, and uranium. 111. Q. What is ozone in air pollution? A. Secondary pollutant. 112. Q. How is ozone formed? A. Through photochemical smog reactions. 113. Q. How is PAN formed? A. Nitrogen oxides react with hydrocarbons in sunlight to form PAN, ozone, and NO. 114. Q. How is fly ash produced? A. From thermal power plants. 115. Q. What is the National Air Quality Index AQI? A. An index launched by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in 2015. 116. Q. Which campaign promoted the National Air Quality Index? A. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. 117. Q. How many pollutants are included in the National AQI? A. 8 pollutants. 118. Q. Who sets national ambient air quality standards in India? A. Central Pollution Control Board. 119. Q. What is SAFA? A. 72-hour air quality and weather forecast system by Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. 120. Q. How many parameters are used in SAFA? A. 7 parameters. 121. Q. What is algal bloom? A. Rapid increase in algal growth. 122. Q. What is the effect of algal bloom? A. Reduced dissolved oxygen in water. 123. Q. What causes algal bloom? A. Upwelling and increased nutrient concentration. 124. Q. Which nutrients mainly cause algal bloom? A. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. 125. Q. What is contaminated water? A. Water with dissolved oxygen below 5 mg per liter. 126. Q. What is bioremediation? A. The use of biological methods to increase biodegradability of pollutants. 127. Q. How is bioremediation carried out? A. Using microbes and genetic engineering. 128. Q. Why is plutonium not commonly used? A. Because it is radioactive. 129. Q. Which disease is caused by arsenic contamination? A. Blackfoot disease. 130. Q. Which disease is caused by cadmium contamination? A. Itai disease. 131. Q. Which disease is caused by mercury contamination? A. Minamata disease. 132. Q. Why is bioremediation not effective for heavy metals? A. Because the process is slow and heavy metals are non-biodegradable. 133. Q. What are the methods of in situ bioremediation? A. Biowinting, biosparging, and bioaugmentation. 134. Q. What is biowinting? A. Supplying air and nutrients to contaminated soil. 135. Q. What is biosparging? A. Injection of air below the groundwater table. 136. Q. What is bioaugmentation? A. Introduction of selected or imported microbes to degrade pollutants. 137. Q. What are the methods of ex situ bioremediation? A. Land farming, composting, biopiles, and bioreactors. 138. Q. What is land farming? A. Excavating and spreading contaminated soil for treatment. 139. Q. What is composting in bioremediation? A. Decomposition of organic matter by microorganisms. 140. Q. What are biopiles? A. A hybrid of land farming and composting. 141. Q. What are bioreactors in bioremediation? A. Systems where contaminated soil or water is pumped up and treated. 142. Q. What is phytomediation? A. The use of plants to remove low-level contaminants. 143. Q. What is noise pollution? A. Sound levels above 80 decibels. 144. Q. What factors contribute to ozone layer depletion? A. Polar stratospheric clouds and chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. 145. Q. What is the role of the ozone layer? A. It protects Earth from harmful ultraviolet UV rays. 146. Q. What is the role of greenhouse gases? A. They trap and re-emit long-wave infrared radiation. 147. Q. What are polar stratospheric clouds, PSCs? A. Clouds that form mainly over the Antarctic stratosphere. 148. Q. What are polar stratospheric clouds made of? A. Ice, nitric acid, and sulfuric acid. 149. Q. What is the role of polar stratospheric clouds? A. They provide surfaces that activate chlorine and accelerate ozone depletion. 150. Q. Why does ozone depletion intensify in polar summer? A. Because returning sunlight triggers chlorine-mediated reactions. 151. Q. Why do greenhouse gases re-emit long-wave radiation? A. Long-wave radiation has lower energy and is absorbed and re-emitted as heat. 152. Q. What are the major sources of methane? A. Domestic animals and wetlands. 153. Q. Which gas has the highest global warming potential among common greenhouse gases? A. Sulfur hexafluoride, SF. 154. Q. What causes acid rain? A. Oxides of sulfur and nitrogen. 155. Q. What is carbon fertilization? A. Increased photosynthesis due to higher carbon dioxide levels. 156. Q. In which plants is carbon fertilization less effective? A. C4 plants such as maize. 157. Q. What causes ocean acidification? A. Absorption of carbon dioxide by the oceans. 158. Q. What are the effects of ocean acidification? A. Reduced calcification and coral bleaching. 159. Q. What are the major sinks of carbon dioxide? A. Oceans and polar ice caps. 160. Q. What is acid rain? A. Rain with a pH of 5.6 or lower. 161. Q. What is the UN Earth Summit process? A. Global environmental summits held periodically since 1972. 162. Q. What was the first UN Earth Summit? A. United Nations Conference on the Human Environment. 163. Q. When was the Earth Summit held? A. 1992. 164. Q. What was the main objective of the Earth Summit? A. Sustainable development. 165. Q. What was the major outcome of the Earth Summit? A. Agenda 21. 166. Q. What were the major outputs of the Earth Summit? A. Agenda 21, biodiversity conservation, desertification measures, and forest principles. 167. Q. What is the legal status of the forest principles adopted at Rio 1992? A. Non-legally binding. 168. Q. What does PAGE stand for? A. Partnership for Action on Green Economy. 169. Q. At which summit was PAGE launched? A. United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. 170. Q. Where was the 2002 World Summit on Sustainable Development held? A. Johannesburg. 171. Q. Which year was declared the International Year of Deserts and Desertification? A. 2006. 172. Q. Where was COP14 to the UN Convention to Combat Desertification held? A. New Delhi. 173. Q. How does the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change meet? A. Through conferences of the parties, COPs. 174. Q. When and where was the first UNFCCC COP held? A. 1995 in Berlin. 175. Q. What is the difference between the Earth Summit and UNFCCC COP? A. The Earth Summit was held in Rio in 1992, while the first UNFCCC COP was held in Berlin in 1995. 176. Q. What is the Kyoto Protocol? A. A climate treaty adopted at COP3 in Kyoto in 1997. 177. Q. When did the Kyoto Protocol enter into force? A. 2005. 178. Q. How many greenhouse gases are covered by the Kyoto Protocol? A. 6 greenhouse gases. 179. Q. What were the commitment periods under the Kyoto Protocol? A. 2008, 2012 and 2013-2020. 180. Q. What is the main principle of the Kyoto Protocol? A. Common but differentiated responsibilities, CBDR. 181. Q. What additional mechanism is used under the Kyoto Protocol? A. Flexible market mechanisms. 182. Q. Which gas has the highest greenhouse warming potential? A. Sulfur hexafluoride, SF. 183. Q. What is the Paris Agreement? A. A global climate agreement adopted at COP21 in Paris in 2015. 184. Q. What is the temperature goal of the Paris Agreement? A. To keep global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius and pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. 185. Q. What is the major financial commitment under the Paris Agreement? A. Developed countries pledge to mobilize 100 billion United States dollars per year through 2025. 186. Q. What are intended nationally determined contributions, indices? A. National climate action commitments submitted under the Paris Framework. 187. Q. What is the Convention on Biological Diversity? A. An international treaty adopted at the Rio Earth Summit in 1992. 188. Q. Which country has not ratified the Convention on Biological Diversity? A. United States. 189. Q. What is the Cartagena Protocol on biosafety? A protocol under the CBD adopted in 2000. 190. Q. What is the aim of the Cartagena Protocol on biosafety? A. To regulate the movement of living modified organisms. 191. Q. What is the Nagoya Protocol? A supplementary agreement to the CBD. 192. Q. What is the role of the Nagoya Protocol? A. Access to genetic resources and fair benefit sharing. 193. Q. What is the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture? A treaty for conservation and sharing of plant genetic resources. 194. Q. What is the International Solar Alliance? An alliance launched at COP21 in Paris for solar-rich countries between the tropics. 195. Q. Where is the headquarters of the International Solar Alliance? A. Gurugram. 196. Q. What is the Montreal Protocol? A protocol under the Vienna Convention to protect the ozone layer. 197. Q. What is the aim of the Montreal Protocol? A. To prevent ozone depletion. 198. Q. What is the Greenhouse Gas Protocol? A. An accounting tool for measuring and monitoring greenhouse gas emissions. 199. Q. Who developed the Greenhouse Gas Protocol? A. World Resources Institute and World Business Council for Sustainable Development. 200. Q. What does UNRED stand for? A. United Nations Programme on Reducing Emissions from Deforestation and Forest Degradation. 201. Q. Who developed UNRED? A. Food and Agriculture Organization, United Nations Development Programme, and United Nations Environment Programme in 2008. 202. Q. What is RED Plus? A program that includes forest conservation, sustainable management, and local community participation. 203. Q. What is Traffic? A. An NGO alliance of Worldwide Fund for Nature and International Union for Conservation of Nature. 204. Q. What is the focus of Traffic? A. Monitoring trade in wild animals and plants. 205. Q. Which reports are published by Worldwide Fund for Nature? A. Living Planet Report and Living Planet Index. 206. Q. What campaigns are run by Worldwide Fund for Nature? A. Earth Hour and Debt for Nature Swap. 207. Q. What is International Union for Conservation of Nature? A. An observer organization at the United Nations. 208. Q. What is another name for Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora? A. The Washington Convention. 209. Q. What is the role of Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora? A. To ensure trade does not threaten species survival. 210. Q. What is the World Wildlife Fund International? A global partnership of NGOs for conservation. 211. Q. What is the Global Environment Facility? A. An international financial mechanism for environmental projects. 212. Q. When was the Global Environment Facility launched? A. At the Rio Earth Summit in 1992. 213. Q. What is the Green Climate Fund? A fund that supports developing countries in climate action. 214. Q. What is the Biocarbon Fund? A fund supported by Germany, Norway, the UK, and the USA. 215. Q. Who manages the Biocarbon Fund? A. World Bank. 216. Q. What is the Climate and Clean Air Coalition? A coalition to reduce short-lived climate pollutants such as methane and HFCs. 217. Q. Which countries are members of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition? A. Countries such as Bangladesh, Canada, Ghana, Mexico, and the United States, along with United Nations Environment Programme. 218. Q. What is the environment? A. Everything that surrounds and affects living organisms. 219. Q. What are the components of an ecosystem? A. Community and environment. 220. Q. What is a species? A group of organisms that can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. 221. Q. What is a community in ecology? A. Interacting and interdependent populations of different species. 222. Q. What is a habitat? A. The address of an organism. 223. Q. What is a niche? A. The functional role of an organism. 224. Q. What is a home range? A. The area in which an animal lives and moves daily. 225. Q. What are the types of ecosystem services? A. Provisioning, supporting, regulating, and cultural services. 226. Q. Water provisioning services. A. Direct benefits such as food, water, and raw materials. 227. Q. Water supporting services. A. Indirect benefits that sustain ecosystem functioning. 228. Q. Water regulating services. A. Services such as air purification and climate regulation. 229. Q. What are cultural services? A. Aesthetic, spiritual, and recreational benefits. 230. Q. What is the basic unit of taxonomy? A. Species. 231. Q. What are the methods of speciation? A. Parapatric, peripatric, allopatric, and sympatric. 232. Q. What is parapatric speciation? A. Speciation in adjacent populations with limited isolation. 233. Q. What is peripatric speciation? A. Speciation in a small isolated population at the edge of a larger population. 234. Q. What is allopatric speciation? A. Speciation due to geographical isolation. 235. Q. What is sympatric speciation? A. Speciation without geographical isolation. 236. Q. What is a keystone species? A species that determines which other species persist in an ecosystem. 237. Q. What is an indicator species? A species that reflects environmental conditions. 238. Q. Which are among the most productive ecosystems? A. Mangrove forests. 239. Q. What is the trophic level? A. Each step in a food chain. 240. Q. What is a food web? A. Multiple interconnected food chains. 241. Q. What is an ecological pyramid? A graphical representation of trophic levels. 242. Q. What are the types of ecological pyramids? A. Number, biomass, and energy pyramids. 243. Q. What does the biomass pyramid represent? A. Dry weight of organisms. 244. Q. What is the characteristic of the energy pyramid? A. It is always upright. 245. Q. What are detritivores and decomposers? A. Mainly bacteria and fungi. 246. Q. What are the primary producers in aquatic ecosystems? A. Phytoplankton. 247. Q. What are lichens? A. Symbiotic associations of algae and fungi. 248. Q. What is bioaccumulation, bioconcentration? A. Accumulation of pollutants within an organism from water or surroundings. 249. Q. What is biomagnification? A. Increase in pollutant concentration along trophic levels. 250. Q. What is homeostasis? A. The ability to maintain internal equilibrium. 251. Q. What is the role of homeostasis? A. To regulate structure and physiological processes. 252. Q. What is carbon sequestration? A. Capture and storage of carbon dioxide in natural sinks. 253. Q. Which organisms contribute significantly to carbon sequestration in oceans? A. Phytoplankton. 254. Q. What is a perfect nutrient cycle? A. A cycle in which nutrients are replaced as fast as they are used. 255. Q. What is an imperfect nutrient cycle? A. A cycle in which nutrients are not replaced immediately. 256. Q. Where are nutrients stored in sedimentary cycles? A. In soil and rocks. 257. Q. What is the Haber-Bosch process? A. An industrial process that converts atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia. 258. Q. Which organisms fix atmospheric nitrogen naturally? A. Rhizobium and Azotobacter. 259. Q. What is nitrification? A. Oxidation of ammonia into nitrites and nitrates. 260. Q. Which bacteria carry out nitrification? A. Nitrosomonas. 261. Q. What is denitrification? A. Conversion of nitrates into molecular nitrogen. 262. Q. Which bacteria carry out denitrification? A. Pseudomonas. 263. Q. What are the stages of the nitrogen cycle? A. Nitrogen fixation, assimilation, ammonification, nitrification, and denitrification. 264. Q. What is assimilation in the nitrogen cycle? A. Incorporation of nitrogen into proteins. 265. Q. What is ammonification? A. Conversion of organic nitrogen into ammonia after death and decomposition. 266. Q. What are the stages of ecological succession? A. Pioneer, seral, and climax communities. 267. Q. What is a pioneer species? A. The first species to colonize a barren area. 268. Q. What is a seral community? A. A transitional community. 269. Q. What is a climax community? A. A stable and mature community. 270. Q. What is a xerosphere? A. Ecological succession in a low moisture area. 271. Q. What is a halosphere? A. Ecological succession in saline soil. 272. Q. What are the types of succession? A. Autogenic and allogenic succession. 273. Q. What is autogenic succession? A. Succession driven by changes caused by the community itself. 274. Q. What is allogenic succession? A. Succession driven by external environmental forces. 275. Q. What are examples of mutualism? A. Lichens, mycorrhizae, and corals with algae. 276. Q. What is mycorrhiza? A. A symbiotic association between fungi and plant roots. 277. Q. What is coral symbiosis? A. Association between coral polyps and algae, zooxanthellae. 278. Q. What is the difference between a predator and a parasite? A. Predators are generally larger and kill their prey, while parasites live on or in hosts. 279. Q. What is a brood parasite? A. An organism that lays its eggs in the nest of another species. 280. Q. What is a fuel cell? A. A device that generates electricity using hydrogen and oxygen. 281. Q. What are used in biopesticides? A. Bacteria, fungi, nematodes, and plants. 282. Q. What is biomass gasification? A. Conversion of biomass into combustible gases. 283. Q. What is the use of biomass gasification? A. To run internal combustion engines. 284. Q. What is a microbial fuel cell? A. A system that uses microbes to generate electricity. 285. Q. What is coal bed methane? A. Methane extracted from coal seams. 286. Q. What is the use of coal bed methane? A. To produce PNG, piped natural gas. 287. Q. What is the main component of natural gas? A. Methane, with smaller amounts of ethane. 288. Q. What is the composition of LPG? A. Propane and butane. 289. Q. What is shale gas? A. Natural gas trapped in sedimentary shale rocks. 290. Q. What is the main component of shale gas? A. Methane. 291. Q. What is the composition of coal gas? A. Hydrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide. 292. Q. What is the National Green Tribunal? A. A specialized environmental court established to handle environmental disputes. 293. Q. Which constitutional provision supports the right to a healthy environment in India? A. Constitution of India, right to life. 294. Q. What is the status of the National Green Tribunal and Central Pollution Control Board? A. Both are statutory bodies. 295. Q. What principle is followed by the National Green Tribunal? A. Principles of natural justice. 296. Q. Where is the headquarters of the National Green Tribunal located? A. New Delhi. 297. Q. Under which act was the Central Pollution Control Board established? A. Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1974. 298. Q. Which ministry regulates genetically modified crops in India? A. Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. 299. Q. What is the role of the National Biodiversity Authority? A. To prevent biopiracy and protect indigenous intellectual rights. 300. Q. Under which act was the National Biodiversity Authority established? A. Biological Diversity Act, 2002. 301. Q. What is the role of the Public Liability Insurance Act, 1991? A. To provide immediate compensation to victims of hazardous accidents. 302. Q. Which act empowers the declaration of eco-sensitive zones? A. Environment Protection Act, 1986. 303. Q. Under which act was the Animal Welfare Board of India established? A. Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, 1960. 304. Q. What is the status of the National Tiger Conservation Authority? A. A statutory body under the Wildlife Protection Act, 1972. 305. Q. Who is the chairperson of the National Tiger Conservation Authority? A. The Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change. 306. Q. How many expert members support the National Tiger Conservation Authority? A. 8 experts. 307. Q. Who chaired the National Ganga River Basin Authority? A. The Prime Minister of India. 308. Q. How many members were in the National Ganga River Basin Authority? A. 22 members. 309. Q. Under which act was the National Ganga River Basin Authority constituted? A. Environment Protection Act, 1986. 310. Q. What is the Bombay Natural History Society? A. A non-governmental organization working in biodiversity conservation. 311. Q. Where is the headquarters of the Bombay Natural History Society? A. Mumbai. 312. Q. Which two committees are associated with conservation of the Western Ghats? A. The Madhav Gadgil Committee and the K. Kasturirangan Committee. 313. Q. What is Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency? A. A public sector non-banking financial institution. 314. Q. What is the role of Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency? A. To provide long-term loans for renewable energy projects. Geography. 1. Q. What was the highly concentrated point of all matter and energy before the Big Bang called? A. Singularity. 2. Q. When did the Big Bang occur? A. About 13.6 billion years ago. 3. Q. What are the major evidences supporting the Big Bang theory?